This is the Servola briefing. Here are the biggest enterprise tech stories from the last 24 hours. Let's get into it. Nvidia just took a minority stake in Cloverleaf Infrastructure, the developer that builds the land, power, and cooling AI data centers actually run on. This is Nvidia's third power infrastructure stake in months. Cloverleaf already delivers gigawatt-scale projects, and Nvidia's own DSX platform will now help design the site, the power draw, and the cooling from day one. The real bottleneck just moved from chips to land. Anthropic says its newest model, Mythos 5, now scans code for every Claude Enterprise customer at standard token pricing, no separate bill. Claude Security has run in beta since April, and every finding now arrives with a severity rating, a vulnerability classification, and a suggested patch. Anthropic is also putting $35 million into open-source security tools. Vulnerability scanning just stopped being a specialist purchase and became a default. Denmark just made it law. Under a new emergency grid rule, data centers now rank dead last for power, behind households and behind green transition projects. The country already has a 60 gigawatt connection queue against just 7 gigawatts of real demand. And grid operator EnergyNet paused new large load hookups back in February. Any operator still expecting first-come, first-served access is now planning against the law itself. Bending Spoons is buying Airtable for $1.285 billion, a steep drop from the $11 billion valuation Airtable carried back in 2021. Airtable still pulls in about $480 million a year in revenue, growing more than 20%. This is Bending Spoons' first deal since its own NASDAQ IPO in July at an $18 billion valuation. And its usual playbook, after a deal closes, is deep cost cuts. On his final earnings call, before handing the CEO job to John Ternus on September 1st, Tim Cook called Apple's memory cost crisis a 100-year flood. Then he went further. He said the real cause was not a supply shock, it was a demand forecast miss, because iPhone grew 22% and Mac grew 29%, both far beyond what Apple's own planners expected. Beating your own forecast can cost you too. OpenAI just cut its GPT 5.6 Sol API prices by more than 20%, but only until November 21st. Output tokens dropped from $30 to $20 per $1 million. Input from $5 to $4. Reuters ties the timing directly to pressure from Anthropic and Chinese vendors like DeepSeek, not to any drop in OpenAI's own running costs. A discount with an end date is a lever, not a floor. Brazil is spending $444 million on AI supercomputing and splitting the money almost evenly between rival camps. A Rio de Janeiro cluster running Huawei and iFlyTech hardware launches in 2027. A separate machine in Rio Grande do Norte is expected to run on Nvidia chips by late the same year. 2 live compute tracks beat one that never gets built, and Brazil just bet on both at once. DeepSeek just showed why cheap AI pricing was never fixed. Its peak hour output price jumped from 87 cents to nearly $4 per million tokens overnight, a 4.5 times increase days after its V4 Pro model went fully available. Anyone who switched to DeepSeek purely to save money now carries the same variable pricing risk they were trying to escape in the first place. No vendor's per token price was ever a floor. TikTok and ByteDance just agreed to pay $400 million to settle child privacy claims with the Department of Justice, one of the largest deals of its kind on record. $300 million is due immediately, the other $100 million tied to closing out a consent decree going back to Musical.ly. Europe's own Digital Services Act can fine platforms up to 6% of global turnover, a far bigger number waiting in the wings. IO Interactive and Amazon MGM just confirmed 007 First Light crossed 4 million copies sold in under 3 months since launch. The single-player Bond origin story, launched in May after a 2-month delay to polish it further, carries no live service season pass and still cleared that number. 4 million in under 3 months does not prove live service is dead, but it does prove a single-player launch can still pay off big. That is your briefing. The full analysis on every story in 10 languages, free at servola.de/journal. We will see you tomorrow.